Throughout classical antiquity, the Arabian Peninsula was composed of many separate tribal kingdoms that would often rise and fall, who would also often fall under the influence of outside powers. Some of these Arab kingdoms were, for example, the Ghassanids, the Lakhmids, the Kindite, and by around 300 AD, the Himyarite Kingdom had emerged as the dominant power in southern Arabia, with the city of Sana'a as their capital. Thanks to their geographical position near the Red Sea and the Indian Ocean, they had access to the lucrative spice trade, shipping and buying goods from as far away as India and Europe. But what made them especially stand out was the fact that they had adopted Judaism as their main religion. However, they weren't the only power around the Red Sea. On its western banks lied the Christian Kingdom of Aksum, who was also involved in the spice trade. At first, relations between the two were amiable. Despite Judaism being the de facto official religion of Himyar, they also had a notable community of Christians as well. They even had a few Christian rulers. The first one established diplomatic ties with the Aksumites. The second one was even appointed by them to rule as their vassal. But relations between the two went south when in 522 Yusuf Asar Yatar, also known as Dunuwas, came to power. A convert Jew, he began persecuting the Christian community in the city of Najran, apparently in retribution of the burning of a synagogue. During his persecutions, he also ended up killing a number of Aksumites living in Najran as well. There are two versions of the events that succeeded the massacre. In one version, Dunuwas wrote a letter to both the Sasanians and the Lakhmids informing them of his deeds, even encouraging them to do the same with their own Christian population. Though, quick side note, this part of this version doesn't make a lot of sense to me because the Lakhmids were themselves a Christian-ruled kingdom, so it would have been very weird for Dunuwas to tell them to kill their own Christian population, but whatever. Let's resume where we left off. When the king of the Lakhmids received the letter in 590, he showed it to the Byzantine ambassadors, who were already there to make peace with him because of a separate war. The ambassadors were, unsurprisingly, shocked by this information and immediately shared it with the emperor. So in response, the Romans asked their Aksumite allies to go depose Dunuwas and even annex the region for themselves as well. But this is one version. In another version, a few Najran Christians that survived the persecution went directly to ask help to the Aksumites. Either way, the ruler of Aksum, King Caleb, unsurprisingly infuriated upon hearing all of this, launched a punitive expedition and succeeded, deposing Dunuwas. According to the historian Ibn Ishaq, Dunuwas took his own life by riding his horse into the Red Sea, drowning himself. After their victory, the Aksumites installed a native Christian named Sumyafa Ashwa as their viceroy, but he didn't last long. According to the contemporary historian Procopius, he was overthrown by an Aksumite general named Abraha, who installed himself as the new viceroy. The reason why he did this was because his soldiers were eager to settle into the region, since at the time southern Arabia had rich and fertile land. So the Aksumites were already eyeing up the region for themselves. At first, Caleb wanted to kick out Abraha out of power, but after multiple failed attempts, he and his successors had to reluctantly recognize him as viceroy, with Abraha paying tribute in return. During his reign, he married a noblewoman from a prominent Arab clan called the Duyazan. But the problem is that 1. She was already married, and 2. She already had a son named Saif ibn Diyazan, who will soon be important. But Abraha was the king, so he just exiled her husband, married her, and had a son with her named Masruq ibn Abraha, Saif's half-brother. Abraha's reign lasted until around 570, where he was succeeded by Masruq. However, when Saif came of age, he planned on overthrowing his half-brother and end Aksumite control over the kingdom. At first he asked for help from the Byzantines, but they were not interested, so instead he asked the Persian king Khosrow I for help. Khosrow accepted, but on the condition that Himyar would become a vassal state of the Sasanian Empire, which Saif accepted. The Persian king appointed a general named Warez to sail down with his army to Arabia. Once there, the Sasanians succeeded in beating the Aksumites at the Battle of Hadramut, with Warez reportedly killing Masruq himself with an arrow. And so they installed Saif as the new king of Himyar and left behind a garrison to keep him in control. Unfortunately, he only managed to reign for a few years, until in 575 or 578 he was killed by an Aksumite servant the second the Persian garrison withdrew. And so, once again, the Sasanians sent Warez to put down this Ethiopian uprising. But this time, after their reconquest, Yemen was fully annexed by the Iranians, with a more permanent garrison established. Warez was even appointed as the region's first governor, and thus ending Aksum's territorial ambitions in southern Arabia. Though interestingly, during the Sasanian rule of Yemen, a large number of Iranian soldiers began to settle and marrying with the local Arab population, even developing their own distinct cultural community, nicknamed ABNÂÇ. However, Iranian rule over Yemen would only last for around 60 years until it was conquered by the early Muslims. So yeah. Thank you for watching. This video was kinda meant to be like a sort of a filler where I get to talk about something that isn't just Europe. So anyway, see you next time.